Hello, my name is Joe Wells, and my topic today is the U.S. space exploration, 1980 to today. So, a little background: the space program was actually the fourth human space program and was introduced 1972 during the Nixon administration. Now, NASA brought two goals to Nixon to choose from: either different vehicles to bring into space or a space station. Nixon chose to go with the vehicles into space that we now know as space shuttles because if we had easier access into to space, then it would decrease the total cost of the International Space Station. NASA had a partnership with Rockwell International in Palmdale, California, and Rockwell International was tasked with the creation of the space shuttles. And President Nixon formed a space group called the Space Task Group. Now, what's different from a normal rocket, like during the Apollo missions, and a shuttle, is that the shuttle was more reusable than a rocket. A rocket would simply just go up and drop one or two or three astronauts, and then they would just return via parachute. However, with a shuttle, these two boosters, the shuttle itself, all reusable. The boosters would detach from the shuttle and be collected in the ocean. This little middle piece here was the fuel tank, and that would actually burn up on reentry. And when the shuttle re-entered the atmosphere, it would land like a plane. Now, the total cost or average cost of a shuttle, and there were six of them, would be about $775 million. And during the entire shuttle program, the entire cost was $113.7 billion. So the main mission of the shuttle program was the construction of the International Space Station, but there were other goals and other points of interest while in space, like experiments of low gravity, repair missions to different satellites, like the Hubble Space Telescope, and resupply missions for people in space already. And then there were also tests and research. So there was research in the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory, and there was testing in Space Hab modules, uh, the Hubble Space Telescope again, and the Upper Atmosphere research satellite. So there were a whole bunch of different things that were being researched and tested while in space, as well as the construction of the International Space Station. The Enterprise was the first attempt shuttle. It never actually went into space, but what it was is a uh, beginner or a kind of test trial, kind of working about the ins and outs of what it needs to take to actually create a shuttle. And it was attached to a modified 747 airliner, as you can see in this picture. The Columbia was the first official space-worthy shuttle, and it was the first one to actually make it into space with a total of 23 flights. That just demonstrating the reusability of these shuttles. Challenger would cost about $1.7 billion and would only make about 10 flights. Discovery would have the most amount of flights, having about 39 in total, with about an entire year in space total. Atlantis was coming pretty close to the previous shuttle, with about 33 flights and 307 days in space. And then there was the Endeavour, which had about 25 flights and 299 days in space. And then for all of the shuttles, they had 135 total flights, which would equate to about 135 missions. And that would lead to about 542 million miles in space. And NASA had a lot of success, but they also had a lot of tragedies. One of those tragedies being the Challenger tragedy. So on the Challenger's 10th flight, they had actually decided to take their first civilian into space as a school teacher. And it was being broadcast to all the schools, and everybody was watching because it was the first time that an average person, not a scientist or a pilot, would be going into space. However, when it was going into space, there seemed to be a problem due to the cold weather, and it created aerodynamic failure, and it caused it to actually break apart, not explode. Um, and NASA's believes or speculates that the people could have the people inside could have probably survived the initial breakup. However, the amount of force that it hit the Earth when it was coming back was unsurvivable. The second tragedy was the Columbia tragedy, and different from the Challenger tragedies, this one actually was during reentry. So instead of taking off and having a problem, it was actually when it was reentering, and it was caused by a piece of foam knocking off a few tiles. And then when it re-entered, it caught fire like it would normally do during re-entry. However, there was already a hole in the tiles, and the fire got in and kind of exploded the shuttle. And then there's retirement. As I had stated previously, with the 135 flights, there was 135 missions, and the last mission was carried out by Atlantis. The mission was called STS-135, and the shuttles are no longer needed because the entire purpose was to go and create the International Space Station, and we actually have that built already. So as of the retirement of this program, the United States has been launching its astronauts via a connection through Russia. But now, SpaceX, tomorrow, the 30th, Saturday, SpaceX plans on launching their very first human launch that in the United States. So it's going to be a big moment. I'm excited to see it myself. All right. Thank you for watching.